Hello everyone. In this session I am going to discuss new classical age, or it is also known as Augustan age. So let's start the new classical age. It means pseudo classical age. It started from 1702 and end in 1744. When Queen Anne became the queen in 1702, the writers of Augustan they realized that restoration literature is totally vulgar and corrupted. So they took it as their responsibility to reintroduce the worth of literature. They made an attempt to introduce a good or worthy literature. They realized that they should reintroduce the classical writers again to the society. So they started imitating classical writers, but this imitation was not a smart imitation and it became a blind imitation of classical writers. They imitated art, style, culture, and pattern, but they could not imitate the greatness of the content, the great thoughts, and the great emotions. This is the reason that this age is called neoclassical or pseudo classical. Augustan writers are also known as grab street writers. It means right to earn money. Later in 19th century, these writers were honored and given the name Milton's writer. The question arises is that why this age is called Augustan age? Because the classical writers, when they developed the classical books, they were in the age of King Augustus Caesar. This age is called the best age of Grecian literature. When they introduced the same age in new culture, they called themselves Augustans, means they compared themselves with the other classical writers. Augustus Caesar was the nephew of Julius Caesar, who established a great society with all the police reforms and launched Pax Romans. It means peace of Rome. This age is called the age of circulating libraries. In this age, there was a flood of writers and publishing houses. This is the reason the writers of low standard and low merit in this age are called grab street writers, those who are writing to make money only. Augustine first people to have political controversy. Religious people emerged into two parties known as the Whigs and the Tories. Tories were the upper status of the church, like bishop, popes, monk, and Whigs are the low church authority, like persons and partners. Alexander Pope, he wrote famous epistle to Augustus. He praised George II and called him that he is like King Augustus. And Augustus Caesar was killed by his friend, and after this they started civil war. Then Augustus Caesar's nephew was selected to be king, and he re-established advancement in literature, knowledge, peace, etc. in society. His time was the greatest time for the great writers like Ovid, Horace, and Homer. People comparing Anne and George II to Augustus. And Augustus Caesar launched a movement which is called Pax Romana, which means peace of Rome. Under this act, he reinforced law and order, police reforms, and made city peaceful. Here, King James I in 1603 he launched an act, Pax Britannica. King compared himself to Augustus and declared that just like King Augustus, I will have peace of Britain. This is the strong reason that in all Shakespearean tragedies, villain get killed, but in Othello, doesn't kill Iago, and Iago is given to mercy on judiciary. It is because Shakespeare wanted to make James II feel that he was respecting law and order. In 1702, Queen Anne became the queen. She died in early age in 1717. 1714. Then King was George I, was diplomatic and supported Tories, but in 1726 he also died. Then George II became the king in 1726. He started sporting wigs, and only he was a good king. And in 1760 he also died. Then George III became the king, and he supported Tories. George III has been severely criticized by Romantic writers. Here is the Union of Crown in 1707 in England, Wales and Scotland. These three countries were joined and formed Great Britain. First ever newspaper in English was printed in 1702, which was called the Daily Current. This age is also called the age of prose and reason. It is the famous quote that is said by Matthew Arnold. New classical writers become the active member of political parties and starting defending themselves, attacking others, starting each other, staring at each other. This age is the age where the most of the pamphlets, magazines, periodicals, prose, printings were published. This age is also called the age of magazines, age of newspaper, and age of coffee houses. Coffee was introduced in England in 1658 with a tagline, a healthy drink from China. Alexander Pope has praised coffee and he says, coffee makes politicians wise and they sing the things with half shut eyes. Coffee is good for bad skin, sore eyes, and it gives relief. So, now let's talk about the writers of Augustine's age. The first writer is Alexander Pope. His time period is 1688 to 1744. His personal life, due to physical deformity, he could not attend the school and most of the time he was irritated and retarded. Alexander Pope wanted to marry a girl, Lady Mary Wortley. Um, he proposed a girl, but she laughed at him because Pope was not a good looking person and the lady was the intellectual lady of Blue Stocking Group. Blue Stocking Group is the most fashionable group of women in 18th century. Pope got humiliated and returned, and next day he wrote a satire on that lady, Elegy on an Unfortunate Lady. His most famous work is Rape of the Lock, which has three different publications, 1712, 1714 and 1717. Rape of the Lock, it is the true story. There was a lady, Arabelle Theomer and Lord Peter. They were the fashionable people from respective families. Lord Peter had a bet with his friend to cut the Arabella's lock in the club. Lord Peter was a mischievous character. He befools the lady and cuts her hair. That became the issue of war. These two families started a great quarrel. So the common friends of these two families and Mr. Carroll, he requested Pope to write something to pacify the feud. Alexander Pope wrote Rape of the Lock in 1712 in two cantos to handle the matter. After publishing this book, it became famous, and Arabella warned him to take legal action as it was her personal matter and Pope had made this issue a national issue. Then Alexander Pope wrote a letter to the lady. He apologized about the fact and requested her, if she allows, he may write again and he may make her the representative of 18th century fashionable girls. She gave him permission and Pope continued writing and he wrote three more cantos in 1714. But after 3 years, Pope in 1717 introduced a new character, Clarissa, who is called Pope's mouthpiece, who has done all the social commentary. Characters in the Rape of the Lock are the mythological characters or supernatural characters. Pope tells that these supernatural characters have been taken from the underworld's mythology, which is called Rosicrucian mythology. It is taken from Adrevius Lecantos de Buelles. Lord Peter is introduced in book as Lord Baron. He is the representative of 18th century fashionable boys. His character has been introduced by Pope in a very heroic way. Pope says, resolved to win, he meditates the way by force to ravish or to betray. Arabella is introduced as a Belinda. Pope introduces her and says she is the most beautiful lady of 18th century fashionable girls. Belinda has been compared to the sun. Lord Baron, he is a real life Lord Peter. He is very proud and Pope has welcomed him with the opening lines. Resolved to win, he meditates the way by force to ravish or by to betray. Belinda Arabelle Farmer, she is so beautiful. Belinda's title was taken from Pope chose three different moons of Uranus. Uranus has Ariel, Ambril, and Belinda. So here he taken the name Belinda. Belinda was a most lavish girl. Her vanity box has been amazingly praised. Pope says India's glooming gems unlocks an old Arabia breeder from the younger box. In line 201, Pope says Belinda smile and all the world is gay. And after that, Sir Blay is brother of Belinda and Thabisrine is Belinda's friend and she keeps instigating her. Clarissa is also Belinda's friend and she does the social commentary. Rape of the Lock is a satire on society and all the messages of Pope is conveyed by Clarissa. Belinda's pet name is Shock and her parrot name is Paul and Thalystra is a friend of Belinda and William Hazlitt called it perfection of mock epic. Here is the important line. Here thought great Anna, whom three limbs obey sometimes takes gloom. No shrieks pitying heaven. The next famous play of Alexander Pope is Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot. It is a satire. It is a reply to the letter written by Arbuthnot. He was a friend of Alexander Pope, and that time Pope in his satire making fun of Lord Harvey by calling him a famous homosexual of mythologies called Sporus. Dr. Arbuthnot in his letter to Pope, he says you should not make fun of Lord Harry because Lord Harry is in good books of Queen Carol. He had good royal contacts that can put you in danger. So Pope replied the concern to his friend in the letter epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot, and Pope here indirectly criticized Sporus by saying, I don't criticize Sporus in my work because Sporus doesn't deserve to be criticized by me. So Pope is posing to be an innocent, but he is not. The famous line is shut the door, got John fatigue. I said, tie up the knocker, say I'm sick, I'm dead. Parents also where he praises his father and he says, born to no pride and born not to any strife. Then he wrote essay on criticism in 1711 whose famous quote is let Homer's work by your study and delight, read them by day and meditate by night. Pope imitated the Horatian style of criticism and concept of imitating classical writers. Pope supported blind imitation of classical writers. Then he wrote Essay on Men in 1734. Here he talks about the life, moral conduct, and the good way of living the life. Theme is to vindicate the ways of God to men and know in thyself, presume not God to scan, proper study of mankind is man. And Compton Rickett, the writer, has called Alexander Pope and Samuel Johnson the literary dictator of their age. literary dictator means people were afraid of Pope as he criticized vices of people. Pope has written a couplet. Yes, yes, I am happy to see men not afraid of God but me. Pope has praised people for their good conduct, but he also says that we should not consider our parents fool. We do not think that there is a generation gap. We think our fathers fool as we grow. No doubt our dearest son will thank us soon. Next play he write is Junesian in 1728. Final publication is in 1748. It is written in two different form, Old Tunisian and New Tunisian. It has two writers who have been criticized, Colley Keeper and Theobald. Pope's criticism on Shakespeare was criticized by Theobald. Theobald wrote Shakespeare Restored. So, this is the reason he criticized Theobald. And Pope here in Atticus, Pope here criticized Joseph Addison in Atticus. Joseph Addison earlier was a Whig Party supporter, but then he became a Tory supporter. Pope criticized him, calling Atticus. Then he wrote Peribathys in 1724. It is a Latin work. It means art of shrinking in poetry. After that he wrote Windsor Forest in 1714. It has romantic elements in content. Next is Dr. Jonathan Swift. It is a juvenile satire and written in classical tradition, but a prose writer. Swift has been famously called champion of liberty. Uh, Jonathan Swift time period is 1667 to 1745. Swift initially wanted to be a poet, but then John Dryden said, Cousin Swift, you will never be a poet. Swift lost his parents in early age and was taken in the command of William Temple. This was the time writers were having the debate about the superiority of ancient writer, the classical Grecian writers and the modern writers of present age. Most of the writers believe that classical writers are far better and the modern writers of new classical are as good as classical. Was William Temple wrote a pamphlet to say the same thing, that modern writers are far better than ancient. But William Temple's pamphlet got criticized by Richard Blanty and Roger Boyle, and Joe Diffin, his uncle Swift, wrote Battle of Books in 1704, where he has dealt a bold story of ancient and modern in the fight. It is said that ancient writers, Grecian writers, were the giants, and the modern writers were just like a dwarf standing on a shoulder of ancient writers. And Swift put his superiority of ancient writer, but he makes sure that William Temple should not be humiliated by his answer. That is why he gives the conclusion, no doubt ancient writers are definitely great, but few modern writers like John Milton, Hobart, John Locke, and William Temple are also great. And the book has allegory called the bee and spider. Spider is a modern writer, those who create a web of their own fluid, while the bee is the ancient writer that flies from sources to sources to get the actual nature of reality. The book Battle of Book is actually set in King James Library in London. And next he wrote A Tale of Two Cities. It is a modern satire. It is a religious satire, and the standard of satire is that much great that Queen Anne didn't understand the satire and she thought that Swift is against religious. A Tale of a Tub. In this, Swift has created a story where a father gives a court to his three sons, Jack, Martin, and Peter. Peter stands for Roman Catholic Church. Jack is related to Protestants or the Baptists, and Martin is related to Martin Luther's religion. These three sons they belong to Christianity. It is a kind of parody. Next, he wrote Gulliver's Travel, which was very famous in all the times. It is published in 1726. It is a greatest allegory. Four different poet title of Gulliver Travel took from the Cave Hill in Belfast. Protagonist is Dr. Lemuel Gulliver. He, doctor by profession, goes for various journey and how he meet people from different states. First work of his was in Lilliput, teeny race of 6 inches. Its time is 1699 to 1702. Lilliput there shows the triviality of humanity, meanness of human nature, and Lilliputian was at war with other country. After Lilliput war, and he goes to another country after the shipwreck. He goes to another land, Broadgang, and here he finds giant people the escape being crushed by the farmer's foot, and he meets the people of 72 feet height. Its time is 1702 to 1706. Farmer puts him into the cage and gifted to his daughter. His daughter played with the Gulliver, then Gulliver gifted to the queen, and finally he was given to the king. King keeps him aside into the cage and keeps talking Gulliver, talks about the European way of living or life. King doesn't like that Europeans use cannons and they have death punishment, and the cage was picked up by an eagle and it dropped in the water where the sailors saved him. King is unhappy to know the European ways. It's the third walk is to Laputa and Flying Island. Its time is 1706 to 1710. Here is few more voyage near to Japan. In the third journey, he is very near to India. Here he finds people, those who are of scientific mind, but they do not use their mind for the creative things. They are simply learning how to mix paint by smell and uncovering political conspiracy by examining the experiment of suspicious person. Here he meets a certain ghost of Julius Caesar and Homer and Aristotle. The fourth walk is to Himes. Here he finds the superior horses, those have enslaved all the humans and governing them. Satire on slavery, that animals are better than human. John Kay has said that it is a book which is read from the nursery to the cabinet counseling. Gulliver's theme was written to somebody, and Jonathan Swift said, I heartily detest and hate the animal called man. Gulliver Travel written under the influence of madness and retarded mind, it is said by Swift. Then he write Modest Proposal in 1726, which was published in 1729. It is a juvenile satire. There are two types of satire, Horatian and juvenile satire. Horatian style, it is written in the need of reformation, and juvenile satire, it is very hard, rendering dark satire. In the Modest Proposal, the complete title is A Modest Proposal from Preventing the Poor Children from Being Burdened on their families and making them beneficial for the public. This work was written in a response to a famous essay written by Defoe. The general's projector, also known as a friendly proposal to prevent murders by erecting hospitals for bastard and foundlings, who has written an elegy on the death of Dr. Jonathan Swift in 1731 and published in 1739. It is a very much famous question that were asked in UGC NET exam. Many people think that he was another man, but it was written by Swift himself. He has written letters to Sheila. He was in love with a maid servant of William Temple called Esther Johnson, but he could not confess his love to her. Then she died. It is believed that Swift became mad. Swift also used a pseudonym M.B. Rapier to write certain political pamphlets. These pamphlets are called Rapier letters. And next, Jonathan Swift's work is Letters to Stella, also known as Journal to Stella. It is published from 1710 to 1730. There are two story theories. First is, it is believed that he is in love with the maid of William Temple called Esther Johnson. He celebrated his love through letters. It is believed that he never proposed her, and when she died, Swift became mad. Second theory is, it is believed that he secretly married her, and one of the church bishop he mentioned in writing that some person called Jonathan Swift married to Johnson. And in his Rapier's letter, Swift was against the colonialism of Ireland. These letters were written under the pseudonym of M.P. Rapier. There are 7 letters were published from 1724 to 1725. He criticized the low quality of currency which were introduced in Ireland by William Wood. Later it became the biggest issue and Irish revolution took place. Irish people thought that they become the second class citizen. The next writer of Augustan is Joseph Addison. Earlier he was a Whig supporter, but he was unemployed and he got an opportunity in 1704 when some royal person requested him to write a poem on the 1704 Battle of Billiam. He wrote a poem in heroic couplet called Campaign and celebrated the victory of Tory, and he was re-awarded as the member of the parliament. Though he celebrated Tory's victory and became a member of parliament, still he was recalled Whig party. He popularized John Locke's idea of tabula rasa. He has written a new classical tragedy, Canto, in 1731, and publication of magazine Tatler and Spectator, and Rosamund in 1707 and The Drummers in 1715. Both are sentimental comedy. If you want to command on English language, give your days and night to Joseph Addison. It is said by Samuel Johnson. Addison and Steele were best friends and they contributed in the magazine The Tatler. The next writer is Richard Steele. Uh, the famous works are The Tender Husband, The Conscious Lover, The Lying Lover, The Christian Hero, The Funeral. All are sentimental comedies, and there are also some newspapers. In Augustan age, the first English newspaper was started by Daily Current in 1702, which was the Daily Current. There were other certain newspapers like Morning Chronicles, Evening Chronicle, Post Boy, Postman, Watchman, a later newspaper. This was the time Richard Steele came with the idea of magazine called the Tatler in 1709. Tatler was a tri-weekly magazine. They were issued on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. and Tatler had 180 essays. 36 were written by Addison and 42 were written by both of the writers. Addison becomes a regular contributor of the magazine, and other contributors are Swift, Pope, John Gay, Arbuthnot, and few others. In Tatler magazine, these writers were using a common pseudonym, Isaac Bickerstaff. Tatler come to an end in January 1711, and seeing the reputation of Tatler, Richard Steele and Addison replanned another magazine and launched it on 1 March 1711, The Spectator. This magazine has a record of selling 60,000 copies in the very first day. The Spectator became famous. Here are 555 issues, where 274 was written by Addison and 236 written by Stella, and rest of issues were written by other contributors. In 1712, the Spectator was ended. Addison became more popular than Steele. Richard Steele came in an idea that we should introduce an imaginary club on papers, which was called Spectator Club. Idea was given by Steele and executed by Addison. Addison planned a Spectator Club with 6 members. The members are Sir Roger D. Cowdery, Sir Andrew Freeport, Val Honeycomb, Mr. Spectator, who was Addison himself, Captain Sentry, and Window Lady. These 6 imaginary characters would deal any topic from 6 points of view. So they would take any policy and they would debate over it from 6 points of view, such as the lady would take the policy from female point of view, Robert D. Cavalry, aristocrat, Andrew Furnell, business class, and Will Honeycomb, a middle-aged common man, Mr. Spectator, a diplomat and captain from royal class. These 6 members' approach was quite realistic, and this is the reason of that the Spectator became famous magazine. The style of the magazine was imitated by Samuel Johnson, who is the Rambler and Idler. In 1730, Spectator came to an end, and these writers started another newspaper called The Guardian. It is set in the order. There are 5 magazines: Tatler, Spectator, Guardian, Rambler, and Idler. Addition, he wrote in the 10th issue of Spectator, I shall be envious to have it that I have bought philosophy out of closest libraries, schools, and colleges, to dwell in the clubs and assemblies at the tea table and coffee houses. He started Kit Kat Club, and now we see the age of enlightenment. In the reign of Queen Anne, England got merged with Holland and Scotland and formed the Union of Great Britain. England became very rich, and it was the age of enlightenment because people started supporting science, developments, and various fields including literature, art, philosophy, medicine, astronomy, economics, or every sector. People like Rousseau, Newton, Voltaire, Immanuel Kant, so they all came with their own discoveries and invention. That is the reason this age is called Enlightenment Age. Charles Lamb called Neoclassical Age is the artificial age. So let's start the summary of epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot. Dr. Arbuthnot was a friend of Alexander Pope. He was a physician of Queen Anne. This is the satire. It simply addresses to Dr. Arbuthnot. Pope he himself called it a memorial as their friendship is heroic couplet. Epistle to Dr. Abignot is notable as the source of the phrase damned with a front phrase or a dead compliment. Who breaks a butterfly upon a wheel? This was the time when Lord Harvey criticizing Pope, and Pope started making fun of Lord Harvey and continues by calling him Sporus. Reading this and being a friend of Pope, Dr. Abignot, he warned Pope not to criticize Lord Harvey, but Pope replied saying that Lord Harvey is someone who doesn't deserve to be criticized by my satire. Even in this attack, he kept on calling him Sporus again and again. Uh, Damned with faint praise, assent with civil beer, and without swaying tact, the rest to sneer, willing to wound and get afraid to strike, just hint you fall and hesitate dislike. These lines are for Joseph Addison, character sketch of Atticus for Addison, who breaks a butterfly upon a wheel. It was a form of torture in which victims had their long bones broken by an wire bar while tied to a Catherine wheel. In this poem, Pope responded to physician word of caution about making satirical attack on powerful people such as Lord Harvey, a baron close to Queen Caroline, because Dr. Arbuthnot knew that Lord Harvey is close friend of Queen Caroline and they might put Pope in danger. Here, Alexander Pope he kept on calling Harvey Sporus. Satire and sense can Sporus feel who breaks a butterfly upon the wheel. In this age, there was a scribers club in which Pope, Dr. Abignot, Jonathan Swift, John Gay, Thomson Parallel, and Henry St. John are the members of Scribers Club. The Scribers Club was an informal association of authors based in London that came together in early 18th century. They were prominent figures in the Augustan age of English letter. Group was founded in 1714 and lasted in 1745. The group created the persona of Martinus Scribers through whose writings they accomplished their satirical aims. The second edition of Pope's is the Dunicid. It contains work attributed to Martin Scribers and Richard's Owen Cambridge wrote a mock epic poem, The Scribener, where the hero is Martinus Scriber, and Henry Fielding's play, The Wales Opera, is presented as a tribute to the Scriberians. Fielding's pen name was Tiberius Candace. So that's all about the Augustan age. Thank you so much for listening so carefully. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.